Everyone keeps telling you that success looks loud, busy, and surrounded by people. But what if the real shift begins when you stop needing the crowd at all? What if the reason you don't chase social life anymore is because something inside you is changing? And most people never notice when that change starts. If you've been feeling disconnected, less interested in small talk and more focused on your own path, stay with me. Because what you're experiencing isn't random, and the reason behind it might explain more about your future than you expect. Most people think losing interest in social life means losing energy. But for some, it's the moment their energy finally stops leaking in the wrong places. And once that happens, a completely different kind of power begins to grow. But it doesn't show itself right away. It usually begins with a small feeling you can't explain. You're in a group, everyone's talking, laughing, sharing stories, and yet your mind is somewhere else. Not because you're bored, but because the conversation feels familiar. Predictable. You already know where it's going before it gets there. And that's when your brain starts asking questions that don't fit the room. Bigger questions, quieter questions, the kind that don't get answered in fast conversations. And once those questions start, it becomes harder to pretend that shallow connection is enough. But that's only the surface of what's happening. Because the next thing that changes is how you experience time. You start noticing how long it takes to recover from certain interactions. How some conversations drain you more than physical work ever could. How entire evenings disappear and leave nothing behind except tiredness. And that's when a dangerous thought appears. What if I invested this time somewhere else? Most people ignore that thought. But intelligent minds don't. They follow it. And that decision quietly rewrites their entire lifestyle, though the results don't show up yet. Then comes the phase that feels uncomfortable. When you step back from constant social noise, your own thoughts get louder. Goals you've been avoiding start knocking. Doubts you buried start rising. Ideas you never had space to explore start demanding attention. And at first that feels messy, because distraction used to protect you from thinking too deeply. Now there's nowhere to hide. But if you stay in this phase long enough, something unexpected happens, and that's when the real transformation begins. You start realizing that most people aren't choosing their lives, they're inheriting them from their environment. Same habits, same complaints, same dreams that never turn into plans, and suddenly, your distance from the crowd doesn't feel like isolation anymore. It feels like freedom. Freedom to think independently. Freedom to question popular paths. Freedom to design your own direction instead of copying someone else's. But that freedom comes with a price most people aren't willing to pay. And that price changes who you allow close to you. This is where your standards shift, quietly but firmly. You stop wanting constant interaction and start wanting meaningful exchange. You stop chasing attention and start protecting focus. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand where you're going. And that's when your circle starts shrinking, not because you're pushing people away, but because your priorities no longer match the environment you were in. At first that feels like loss, but later it reveals itself as preparation for something much bigger. Here's what most people don't realize. Social life is often built around reaction, not creation. Reacting to opinions, reacting to trends, reacting to drama. But intelligent people are wired to build, not just respond. They want progress, not just participation. And building requires long stretches of quiet focus. It requires saying no to invitations that feel good now, but cost you later. And that discipline starts shaping your future, long before anyone else notices you're changing. And yes, people start commenting, "You don't come around anymore. You've changed. You're too serious now." But what they're really noticing is that you stopped playing the same role. You stopped being predictable. You stopped needing the same things they still rely on. And when that happens, some people feel uncomfortable, not because you did something wrong, but because your growth highlights their stagnation. And that creates tension you can't ignore. So you learn something powerful. Not everyone deserves access to your time, energy, and attention. Not because you're above anyone, but because your focus is now tied to your future. You start choosing peace over popularity, direction over distraction, momentum over momentary pleasure. And the strange part is, the more you protect your energy, the stronger and clearer you start to feel. That clarity changes how you speak, how you decide, how you carry yourself. And people sense that shift even if they can't explain it. But let's talk about the part nobody likes to admit. This phase can feel lonely. There are nights when you wonder if you're missing out. Moments when you question whether you've pulled back too far. Times when you wish you could just turn your brain off and enjoy things the way you used to. And this is exactly where most people turn back. They go back to noise because silence feels uncertain. But those who stay, they discover something about themselves that changes everything. They discover that solitude isn't empty. It's full of growth. It's where habits are built, skills are sharpened, discipline is formed, confidence is developed without applause. It's where you start becoming someone you respect, even when no one is watching. And once that self-respect appears, you stop needing external validation to feel stable. You stop adjusting yourself to fit into spaces that don't support your evolution. And that independence of mind becomes one of your greatest strengths. Here's where things get interesting. When you stop chasing social approval, you start attracting different kinds of connections. Not louder ones, deeper ones. People who care about progress, not performance. People who value honesty, not image. People who recognize focus because they live by it too. But these connections don't appear while you're still addicted to constant stimulation. They show up after you've learned how to stand strong on your own. And suddenly social life doesn't disappear, it transforms. Instead of many shallow interactions, you experience fewer but stronger bonds. Instead of constant entertainment, you experience mutual growth. Instead of trying to be everywhere, you start being exactly where you need to be. But none of this happens if you don't first pass through the quiet stage. The stage where it feels like nothing is happening, even though everything is changing. There's also a mental upgrade that happens here. When you're not constantly influenced by group thinking, your thoughts become sharper, your decisions become faster, your confidence becomes quieter but stronger. You stop doubting every move because you've spent time understanding yourself. And that inner stability becomes the foundation for leadership, whether you ever seek a title or not. Because people naturally follow those who move with calm certainty, not those who chase attention. So when you look at it from a distance, it becomes clear. Intelligent people don't avoid social life because they can't connect. They step away because they're preparing for something that requires focus, discipline, and emotional control. They understand that every level of growth demands a different environment, and they're willing to be misunderstood for a season if it means becoming unstoppable in the long run. And this is the part that might change how you see your current situation. If you feel out of place right now, it doesn't mean you're lost. It may mean you've outgrown something. If you feel less interested in crowds, it doesn't mean you're disconnected. It may mean you're reconnecting with your direction. And if you feel like you're in between chapters, that's often where the most important upgrades happen, quietly, without announcements. So here's the truth you don't hear enough. You don't need constant company to build a powerful life. You don't need noise to make progress. And you don't need everyone to understand your path for it to be real. Sometimes the most meaningful growth happens when no one is clapping, no one is watching, and you're simply becoming stronger in ways that will show later. If this phase feels strange, let it be strange. It means your priorities are shifting, your awareness is sharpening, and your future is asking for a higher level of focus. Stay committed to what matters, stay patient with the process, and trust that this season is shaping you for opportunities you can't fully see yet. And if this connected with you, thank you for watching until the end. That tells me you're serious about your growth and your future. If you want more content that strengthens your mindset, sharpens your focus, and helps you move forward with clarity, like this video and subscribe. You're not stepping away from the crowd by accident. You're stepping toward the next level of who you're becoming.